Welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, taking you up until 2 a.m. here on 90.7 FM, Facebook, and YouTube. Jimmy Sullivan, Alex Wills, now pleased to be joined by the co-host of MSG AM, Kaz Famuyide. As we said, he co-hosts MSG AM from 8 to 9 in the morning alongside Monica McNutt. He's also the host of the Say Less podcast with Kaz and Lowkey. Kaz, thanks so much for being with us. How are you doing today?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's New Year's almost here. Just home, cozy. Two Knicks wins, so I'm in a better mood than usual. But things are good, man. How about yourself?
We're doing great. Thanks for being here. And first time in a while, I feel like I can say that. I want to talk about the New York Knicks. And they were really good. Their win over Cleveland, Julius Randle, a triple-double. Just off the jump, as you watched the Knicks to start this season, how impressed have you been with the way this team has come out of the gate under Tom Thibodeau?
Well, the most impressive thing about the Knicks, which any diehard, starving New York Knicks fan could attest to, is that even in the first preseason game, these guys play really hard. Like, they don't give up on plays. They hustle on defense, even when the shots weren't falling, which was a major concern in the preseason. The rotations on defense were incredible. They're crisp. Tom Thibodeau is a no nonsense guy. If there's a guy who missed a rotation, or somebody got an open shot, or somebody just blew something on a back door or something, those quick timeouts are definitely starting to pay off early in the season. Those guys know that the better they play, the more they're going to stay on the court, and the leash is pretty quick. So off rip, one of my favorite things about this team is just the effort, man. Like, you know, a lot of people will say that New York isn't built for a rebuild, especially the New York Knicks. And I kind of beg to differ. I think New York Knicks fans just want to see a team that goes and gets bloody knees and dives on the floor and ready to fight. Not the fake, like, oh, we're bringing the 90s back. Oh, let's be tough guys fight. But I mean, like, show fight when you play. Like, you're going to get punched. This is the NBA. Every team's going to make a run. Punch back and, you know, just see what happens. So outside of everything offensively, the defense is what I've been extremely happy to see in the effort. And that's all thanks to that coaching staff with Kenny Payne, Mike Woodson, and of course, Tom Thibodeau.
That's exactly what I was going to ask about is Tom Thibodeau, because there was a lot of, I think, concern about how he would mesh with some of the younger guys on this team in terms of his history, but you knew you would get that effort that you kind of talked about right there. So what you've seen in the first four games so far, that effort that you talked about, is that script pretty much you think what's going to play out this season and what you expected, or you think there's some surprises in store for what we're going to see this year?
Well, they're the second youngest team, or I think the youngest team in the NBA right now. I don't know. It's either top three or top two, whatever. They got youth. They got energy. They should be able to run and play hard and play defense and give effort at the very minimum. Okay. So I think that's definitely going to be a calling card of this team. And one of the best traits about having a good coach is knowing personnel and knowing what you got. They don't have a superstar. I mean, if you want to, you know, Julius Randle is playing like a superstar right now, but, you know, granted, if he keeps this up all season, I will be the happiest Knick fan in the world. But I don't think anybody, you know, I don't think anybody that watches the game or watches the Knicks expects Julius Randle to drop triple doubles every night, you know? So the effort's gonna have to be there, and that's gonna be their calling card of the team. They're gonna have to be a scrappy team. They're gonna have to win ugly. There's gonna be some 95-86 games like last night where nobody gets over 100 points and people are bricking shots, and that's what you want if you're a fan of the New York Knicks. It's not gonna be, you know, I mean, granted, there was that sort of aberration the past two games where the Knicks suddenly lead the league in three-point field goal percentage, but the one thing you can always count on is effort and defense. Shots are going to fall. Shots are going to miss. It's a make or miss league, as you hear all the time, a million times around. But the one thing you could always control is your effort and the defense. So with that youth, that coaching staff, and everything else that they got going on, and, you know, just pride. Like, you know, everybody's trying to little brother you in your own city. Everybody's trying to say, like, the Brooklyn Nets are the big show in town. Like, you got to have a little pride as well. These are all professional athletes. So I think they got that going for them. And, you know, the fact that I think a lot of people kind of slept on the Knicks and slept on the depth that they have and, like, the sort of mix of young talent and veterans that have won at the big level and have had big expectations throughout their career. So I think that's going to be something that we could really count on to seeing from the Knicks all season.
Talking with Kaz Famuyide, co-host of MSG AM here on One. Kaz, staying on the subject of the Knicks, and in the absence of Julius Randle, averaging a triple-double every night, which is great, but as you said, probably not going to happen. I think it's also worth noting that the Knicks are kind of banged up right now. No Obi Toppin, no Emmanuel Quickley for a lot of the early season games. Just how much do you think it'll also help when those guys come back, the 2 first-round draft picks the Knicks had in November? How much do you think that'll help this Knicks team to get that transfusion of energy from those guys when they come back into the lineup?
Well, I think it's 2 things, right? The reason why these 2 victories have felt really good for Knicks fans is because of exactly what you said. They haven't had a lot of depth. I think yesterday they only played 8 players, and that rotation was pretty tight. And that could be a double-edged sword. Some players play better knowing that they're going to play and they're not going to have the quick leash because the rotation is small. Other players might need that rest and might need that time to kind of sit down and relax. How that factors in with the rookies, Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickley. The one thing I really noticed about Emmanuel Quickley is that he plays with such pace. And the one thing that Elfrid Payton has done really well throughout his Knicks career is always play with pace. He always pushes the ball. He always penetrates. He always makes great plays. He does everything you really want out of an NBA point guard. He just couldn't really shoot it. So obviously when you've seen him knocking down threes and getting buckets against the Milwaukee Bucks, they win in a rout because that's been the one missing piece as far as New York Knicks. I mean, they have talent. They have talent on the wings. They have talent on the post. They have talent at center. They just need a conductor to sort of swing this whole thing through. And the reason why Knicks fans have gotten such a wet appetite over Emmanuel Quickley is because we saw that. We saw him play like a point guard that watches NBA basketball in the 2020s. He's going to shoot. He's going to get floaters. He's going to run up and down. He's not going to walk the ball up. He's trying to get that pace going and get people scoring. So I think when he comes back, hopefully the hip pointer, I think he's questionable tomorrow. He took some contact today. So I think he should be good to go against the Raptors on New Year's Eve. That gets people excited. As far as Obi Toppin is concerned now, it might be a little different. I think Obi has the one thing that's really impressed me with Obi Toppin is his IQ for the game. He's made a lot of really impressive passes that I don't think gets a lot of credit, because every time you see Obi Toppin, you see incredible dunks, you see athleticism, you see him shooting threes. He's an offensive powerhouse, and we haven't really gotten to see a full, even that one preseason game that he played pretty well, you didn't really get to see the full package. Like a lot of those shots that he made were kind of like, shooters, bounces and rolls, and got a few dunks here and there, easy stuff, but we haven't really got to see the whole repertoire yet. And I think right now with how good Julius Randle is playing, I don't think it's going to be that much of a detriment to Obi Toppin. I think now the pressure is off from New York City to throw that dude into the starting lineup, right? Like, you got Julius Randle in there who's playing out of his mind. And when you have both of those guys on the court, it's pretty hard to kind of share that court and share those shots, because the way that offense is set up, I think they're going to end up getting a lot of the same sort of shooting opportunities. So when it comes to Obi, I think right now, when he comes back, hopefully in the next few days, or I guess a week or so, he's the perfect spell for Julius Randle. Like, it's the same sort of offense. You don't got to really change much out of him. You don't got to run stuff for him. They have pretty similar body types, similar athleticism. Probably Obi's probably a little bit more athletic than Julius Randle, but I think it's gonna serve those guys well, getting to kind of sit and watch from the sideline. And granted that they keep this effort up in the next game, they don't want to come and mess anything up, so they want to come in and keep that thing going, especially the way that second unit is run. I mean, the first preseason games, everything we saw that got us excited came from that second unit. Kevin Knox coming off the bench, Quickly coming off the bench, Obi Toppin coming off the bench. So I think it bolsters the depth of the Knicks, and there's a possibility there could be some fun games this season where, they're not going to really be out of it, because they can go to the bench and have some young, exciting scoring talent to come in and either get the energy up or keep the energy up.
I love all the optimism with everything we're talking about here with the young guys, and I'm curious if you think that trend continues with RJ Barrett because he's had, I think, quite a wild start to the season. Is just a difficult guy to judge in general because starts off with 26 points, terrific game against the Pacers, but really struggling afterwards in terms of shooting the ball. I mean, under 50%. I don't even think he's made a three yet in those games since the opener. So second year now, I think. What do you kind of want to see from RJ Barrett that gives you some sort of confidence about his future, like you have with a lot of these other players?
Like I said this sort of in the beginning, it's a make or miss league. And the great thing I've watched about these Knicks is that they get good shots. Like if you watch their offense, like you're not seeing a lot of people taking contested shots, shooting into traffic, getting their shot punched from the 3-point line or whatever. Granted, that a lot has to do with Julius Randle and drawing a lot of that defense and getting those open guys their shots open. So I'm not necessarily worried. I think RJ is eventually going to figure it out. And the one thing I have wanted to see with him, that would make me excited for his potential is kind of what I'm seeing right now. How is he going to react to adversity? How's he going to react when his shots aren't falling? And, that chip on his shoulder that he's had all season about not being named to the all-rookie team. Is he going to press? Is he going to try and take away shots from, players that are playing better than him? Is he going to feel like, all these things that he wants to do are going to come at the detriment of the team? And he hasn't done that at all. When his shots haven't been falling, he's been rebounding the ball well. He's been playing really good defense. He's made some incredible passes to Mitch Robinson and Julius Randle. I just want to see that all-around game. These guys are NBA players. We've seen people that are way worse shooters than RJ Barrett eventually become knockdown, consistent three-point shooters. So the kid's just he's a half a day over 20 years old already. He's super young. He's got the pedigree. I'm not worried about him eventually becoming a great scorer in this league because there's a certain knack that he has to attacking that rim, getting to the free throw line. He's shooting the free throws a little bit better. And, just being able to get points when your shot necessarily isn't falling. Once that shot begins to fall, though, watch out. We saw it in the first regular season game when he couldn't miss, and we were watching him, and we're just saying this dude is looking like every bit the future all-star shooting guard that he was projected to be since high school. You know what I mean? So I'm sure we'll see a lot of that soon, but right now, what I'm seeing, I like that the way he's responded to not being able to shoot well. Just doing other things to help your team. You don't necessarily need to get buckets all the time to help contribute to winning basketball, and he's young enough to know that.
Kaz, we've been talking a lot, and I feel like there's been a lot of discussion about the Knicks players and how much they've bought into Tom Thibodeau, the culture, the behavior, and we've seen that in the first few games. But to sort of reverse that, how much do you also think that Tom Thibodeau has adapted to this group of players, the young guys, the veterans? How good of a job do you think he's done in maybe adapting his style a little bit into a way that works for this specific Knicks team and this specific group of players?
Well, the one thing I've noticed from him is he's really sort of embraced analytics, which, you look at Tom Thibodeau and he's every bit the old school, gruffy, gritty 90s sort of head coach that just kind of the drill sergeant. But, you might not necessarily see it during a game, but if you watch some of his post-game comments, some of the stuff that he talks about in the press conference, he mentions a lot about plus minus. He talks a lot about people getting great shots. He's had this consistently. He said this consistently throughout the season about players that I've been skeptical about, guys like Kevin Knox, guys like Frank Ntilikina. And he's literally said, they're good shots. When they take good shots, they go in. And the one consistent that's been throughout preseason and 4 games into the regular season is that the Knicks get really good shots. They get them open. They just got to knock them down, and you don't get those sort of specifics and analytics without great coaching and being able to know where these players fit best. I think Tom Thibodeau, when you look at him and see that, his history with Derrick Rose and turning him into an MVP. And I kind of feel like everybody looked at that point guard position and was like, oh man, like this guy's, you're going to be, the pupil, you're going to be the star pupil under the Thibodeau tree, because if there's anything he does, he's make point guards really well. And the fact that Dennis Smith Jr. hasn't played that well, Austin Rivers has been hurt. Alfred Payton's been up and down. And who else? Emmanuel Quickley's been hurt. The fact that he had the knowledge of self to, evolve Julius Randle into a point forward and say, hey, this guy's the best playmaker on the team. Maybe he's not like Chris Webber, Vlade Divac, Nikola Jokic, like this incredibly good passer. But what he does really well is draw attention. And I'm pretty sure Tibbs and Payne and Woodson have drove it into him like, hey, you see how easy it was for you to get into the paint all last year, and you didn't really trust your teammates, and you used to do spin moves and do anything you can to score a bucket. Look how many people around you. Now look at all these guys that I brought in to help you out. We got Reggie Bullock for you, Alec Burks, Alfred's getting better, Frank's shooting the ball well, Kevin Knox shooting the ball well. Just kick it to these dudes. Get them open shots, man. And he's drawing a lot of attention because Randall's getting buckets. And Tibbs, I want to say his demeanor and the way that he's kind of adapted his old school style into this new school sort of way of playing ball is that everybody's positionless. Everybody could be a playmaker, right? And whoever gets the ball, unless you're like Mitchell Robinson, just get it and go. Just run. You don't got to slow the ball down and start your offense with 17 seconds on the clock. Just push it, put pressure on that defense, and let them make a decision. And I think he's done a really good job with that, especially Julius Randle. If Julius Randle continues on this tear, Tom Thibodeau is going to be getting a whole lot of Coach of the Year nominations because they were, as a fellow Knicks fan, people were waiting for Julius Randle with pitchforks, ready to run him out of town, include him in every single trade package. And not to say that has changed so much. I'm sure if the right package came along, Knicks fans would still probably be, willing to do away with them. But right now, right this second, on 5/18 on Wednesday, December 30th, I don't think anybody would be happy trading Julius Randle at the moment. So I'm excited for that.
As a Randle fan, I would say I feel verified now that this is happening. But I do want to ask, I'm not going to ask you for a prediction about the Knicks season in general, because I think it's difficult to judge considering those injuries that you mentioned. I just don't think that's fair. But I'm more curious from a broad NBA perspective. We've seen the Knicks as a casualty of all these injuries. We saw a lot of blowouts these past couple of days, 50-point game, 45-point games. Is that type of disparity between the injuries, between the blowouts in this shortened season with that short off season, is that at all a concern about what we're going to see in this NBA season as a whole?
I don't think it's a concern. I do think it's going to be something that we see a lot, though. We kind of got like the perfect storm of terrible blowouts that we're going to see, right? We got a short off season. You got people that are going to be injured. We got no crowd. Like, there's a lot of times when you're down 20 points, and I don't know if you guys have played basketball before, but like you hit 1 or 2 shots, cut it to 16, you cut it to 14, that crowd, that rumble kind of starts throughout the arena. And now you're getting energy and adrenaline that you've never even knew you can get it from. That's not going to happen this season. Well, that's not going to happen in a lot of arenas up until, we figure out what's going on with this pandemic. But, there's going to be a lot of things that, for a while, we're going to see some very wonky scores. I think we've seen 2 this week with, the LA Clippers getting punched by 50 points. And then a couple days later, the Miami Heat getting punched by almost 50 points, and the, Bucks breaking a record for threes just days after they couldn't buy a bucket against the New York Knicks. So I feel like we're going to expect that for a while. I think up until maybe February, top of February, maybe after Martin Luther King Day, where people get their sea legs under them. A lot of those injuries aren't as common anymore. And as far as the Knicks are concerned, I'm sure there's going to be those games where they look like the same old Knicks where they get punched by 40. But I feel like everybody should just take into account these are not regular times. These are not simple NBA seasons that we can all have a litmus test of we can compare it to other seasons. You can't compare this to any other season. You can't even really compare this to the bubble. This is extremely different circumstances that we're living in. So, I'm not worried about the Bucks. I think they'll be there at the end. I'm not worried about the Clippers. I think they'll be there at the end. I do think that there'll be these one-off scores that kind of pop out on your NBA app and be like, oh, wow, that's different. But I don't think it's cause for much concern yet.
Yeah, don't mention that Heat game to Alex. But anyway, we'll move on.
My
from
Heat
that.
Sneakers over there, I don't have it with for a reason.
Hey, what could you do sometimes? But Kaz, before we let you go, I wanted to ask, you're involved in a project, the Springhill Company, reading from part of the mission statement now, it
seeks
seeks to empower greatness in every individual, from creators to consumers. If you don't mind, can you just tell us a little bit more about that project, your involvement in it, and what drew you to take part in that?
Well, yeah, man, I've had a great relationship with Springhill Company and Uninterrupted for a number of years now. I've hosted shows with them. I've hosted projects. I've always kind of been like their de facto non-athlete host, once Uninterrupted was more of like an athlete-based program. And then earlier this past year, there was an opportunity to come on in more of an official term as a creative executive for a lot of their audio projects. So it's an incredible place to be, obviously. I mean, it's fun to have a West Coast team to cheer for. So, when LeBron does good, we all do good. But as far as the audio projects are concerned, currently, I show run and executive produce a podcast with DJ Khaled called The First One on Amazon Music exclusively, which is one of Springhill's biggest out of sports projects, right? Like a lot of the stuff that they do is, very sports based or Space Jam or, lots of stuff within the sports realm, More Than a Vote, and, all these things that LeBron and Mav Carter take very seriously and to heart. And this music project with DJ Khaled is something that we believe is going to really grow the company's clientele as far as being like an authority in the music space. Before I was, really doing a lot of sports content. My roots are in hip hop, man. Like I was editor at The Source magazine for 4 years. I was editor at Hip Hop Wired. I ran translation. Stash that translation with Steve Stout, who's now the chief advisor to the Knicks. And most of these artists and guys that are out right now are people I've either grew up with or been friends with for a long time. So yeah, man. So the first one is especially trippy for me because we're talking to these incredible, iconic artists about their first hit record, and DJ Khaled is interviewing them. You know what I mean? Like, it's different if I'm interviewing you. It's different if, a pro journalist is interviewing these artists, but DJ Khaled gets things out of these artists that nobody can. And current episodes that we have right now, if you haven't checked it out, you go to Amazon Music. We've done episodes with Lil Wayne, Puff Daddy, Fat Joe, Kelly Rowland, J Balvin, Big Sean, Rick Ross, T.I., Bryson Tiller, Nas, just, some of the greatest to ever do it, and talking about and bringing them back to a time before they were, the big, kahuna, some of the biggest artists in the world. So it's really a fun project, man. Like, and Khaled, working with DJ Khaled is incredible because he doesn't take a day off. That's him. Like that excitement, that enthusiasm that you see with him, and another one, and We the Best, and Bless Up, and all that type of stuff. That is him to a T. So kind of like tag teaming him with him on this project has been an incredibly great experience. And I can't wait to do 10 more seasons of the podcast, man. It's really fun.
And you listed off a lot of iconic names. One other one that gave you a shout out before we let you go here was Clyde Frazier, because we saw the bite on the internet. The stickers that aren't back there right now are the Pumas that you showed off on the show. Just curious. Oh, you got him. You gonna bring him out for us?
I got a pair. I got some RS Dreamers. Shout out to Dreamville. Shout out J. Cole. Love these.
I've been looking for those
Super Mario editions. But yeah, man. Clyde. I've met Clyde. The funny thing is, the first time I met Clyde was the beginning of last season. Was at the the big Puma reveal for RJ Barrett, Kevin Knox, and himself. So I kind of moderated this conversation between like all these generations, and Clyde is the absolute coolest dude, like cooler than a cheetah, just a smooth cat, man. And you see him, and like, you remember like Chappelle's show when like Rick James walked in with like the aura and stuff like that? Like, yeah. That's what Clyde Frazier walks in with. Like, he walks in with that sort of aura. So when I'm watching the game, and I knew that this bump is going to come in between like free throws or whatever about the video game sweepstakes, hearing Clyde Frazier like rhyme my name, I was like, I'm good. I'm done. You can put it on my tombstone, put it on my resume. Call me Jazzy Kaz from now on, because you know it's a one thing to do MSG AM, which I love doing, and you know it's some of the most funnest stuff I've ever done. Monica McNutt is an incredible co-host. She makes this show so fun and so easy. But on top of that, man, like I'm a lifer when it comes to the Knicks. Like, since it's the only team I've ever rooted for, it's the only team I've ever, really even cared for. I mean, I love basketball, I love the NBA, and I love the game. But when you're a New Yorker, like it's the Knicks, and that's all it is. So I get to wake up and live my dream every day, man. Talk about Knicks basketball. Have Clyde and Mike Breen shout you out in the middle of a Knicks game. I'm like, is this life? What's going on right here? But it's tight, man. It's really incredible, and I'm keeping Jazzy Kaz. So shout out to Clyde Frazier for the nickname. Not many people on earth can say Walt Clyde Frazier gave him a nickname, and I could say that. So that makes me feel really good.
There you have it. Jazzy Kaz Famuyide, co-host of MSG AM from 8 to 9, Monday through Friday with Monica McNutt. You can catch Kaz and Monica on the show every morning. Kaz, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. Happy New Year to you and yours.
Thank you guys, man. I love the show. I love what you guys do. I love that it's been long running for as much as it has. And shows like this are extremely important, man. Like, you got to keep the medium alive. You got to be able to keep doing what you're doing. So I really do appreciate you. And whenever you guys want me back, I'll be more than happy to come through.
Right back at you. We'll talk to you soon.